Welcome, 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 everyone, to the second of this 2022 year, Java with James. Woohoo! I love these events. I love them. They're the third Thursday of every month. We invite lovely guests, amazing human beings, mentors, youth development workers to have conversations with us about a variety of topics. We've talked about fundraising, we've talked about policy, we've talked about advocacy, recruiting mentors of color, increasing male mentorship all around Washington State. For those that don't know, may be new to this call, Mentor Washington is the public-private partnership with DCYF. We work with 140 plus organizations around Washington State, supporting 65,000 youth through partnership. Some of them are on this call, so big shout out to you. Today, we have right now two amazing human beings whom I've known for a while. Lacie I've known for, so we go back like the other side of the pillow. We that cool. So we go back and we're having some great conversations about supporting Black girls, especially during this time of political divisiveness and just what the work that they're doing. So to kick us off, I want to shout out, big up to welcome Lacie West from Friends of the Children Seattle. Woohoo! And Carlecia Bell from Phenomenal She. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And now we have our third guest just joining us. I'll wait for her to join. Greetings, everyone, for joining. Thank you for coming. And there's our third lovely human being, Alonda Williams from Big Brothers Big Sisters Puget Sound.
Hi there. My apologies.
No apologies needed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the three of you so we can see all of your faces, and then we'll kick it off. All right.
All right. And I just want to give you a heads up. I'm having some trouble with Zoom on my desktop, so I'm on my phone, and if I can get it to work, I'll switch over. So I might, you might see another invite for me. Just want to give you a heads up.
Okay, no worries. That's all good. So the way today is going to work out is we're going to give each of these lovely human beings a couple minutes to present the work that they're doing. They're going to jump into some panel questions, and then we'll open it up to the attendees and see if you have anything you want to ask, share, learn from these beautiful people. So, Alonda, you're maybe having technical issues, so we'll go to you next. But Lacie, can we kick it off with you?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Lacie. I use she, her pronouns. And I am the executive director for Friends of the Children Seattle. I have been in this role for almost 8 months now, but I've worked at some other awesome community organizations before this, the Service Board, College Access Now, which is now College Possible, and then before that, United Negro College Fund, also known as UNCF. And Friends of the Children Seattle are part of a national org. Our chapter, though, has been in existence for 21 years. And we serve over 200 youth, and we are a long-term mentorship program. So we stick with you 12 years, no matter what, 12 years plus, actually, no matter what. So we start with youth usually in kindergarten and then all the way up to high school graduation. And we have some awesome professional mentors. They're full-time mentors. We have around 30 of them that are in our organization, and they are the heart and soul of all the work that we do. So that's a little bit about me and us.
Thank you, Lacie. Thank you, Lacie. Alonda, can we turn it over to you?
For sure. Yeah, sure. So I'm Alonda Williams. I have been in my role as president and CEO of Big Brothers of Puget Sound for about 4 months. I came to the organization after spending 5 years at the Y of Greater Seattle. And prior to that, I worked actually in the corporate space. Most recently, I ran education for Microsoft. I did that for 5 years. I've also been in education on the college side in many roles in various capacities. And I'm also an author. I write children's books. My books are focused on girls. Penny and the Magic Puffballs is the name of the series, and it's really about empowering young girls to really embrace their natural self and to feel good about being and looking different. And it was inspired by my daughter growing up in Redmond.
Okay, we got to cop this book, Alonda. How am I just now learning about this book? That's crazy. What age is it designed for?
Well, it's on Amazon, and it's designed for honestly, it's designed for the perfect it's great for kids that are just learning to read. So usually that kind of 4 to 10 range, but I have been, I've spoken to schools, I've spoken to other groups, and they're older girls who kind of can appreciate, even adults, honestly, that can appreciate the story of being called out because you're different or feeling different or your hair is different. And therefore people like look at you and want to touch it and want to, sometimes make fun of it. So, and we all know, thanks to the Crown Act here in Washington State, that this is not a situation that's unique to kids, but it starts really, really early. And so I wanted to do something about it. I felt it was a story that needed to be told. And so I really, wanted to make sure that little girls knew that you're beautiful just the way you are. You don't need to change anything.
I love that. I love that. Can you put that name of the book into the chat? Princess and the Magic Puffballs, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Lovely. Carlecia, I know you have a PowerPoint. You want to share your screen?
The PowerPoint is about Phenomenal C, so our programming. But about me, I am Carlecia Bell, Executive Director of Phenomenal C. And Phenomenal C was established in January of 2018. And I am one of the co-founders of the organization. So I am going to share my screen just to show you a little bit about who we are and the programming that we offer. And it says that I don't have the capability to share right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay. 1 second. Okay, there we have it. All right. I'll be really brief here. So our mission is to provide mentorship, encouragement, and empowerment to young women of color by building confidence around education, social awareness, and self-esteem. Our vision, we envision a society in which all young women of color will have the foundations needed to break any glass ceiling they may encounter in society. So our programming, we have A Better Me, which is facilitated by culturally relevant mental health counselors. These are licensed therapists. They're group sessions. They discuss self-care, self-esteem, current or present socio-emotional concerns. They explore therapeutic exercises. And if our therapists feel that there's more one-on-one that's needed, then she'll do that as well. We have academic support and engagement, and that is also facilitated by a culturally relevant STEM tutor. She also provides individual tutoring, homework assistance, and she specializes with STEM engagement. So that's our focus there. We have life skills and development workshops. We have a 12-month curriculum for that. And so we cover just life skills, things that they may not get in the school setting. We bring in culturally relevant guest presenters about twice a month for that. And then we also offer one-on-one mentoring. And so we have a MAC roadmap. There's a parent and guardian assessment, a mentee assessment, and we use those assessments to match them with the appropriate mentor. So we have clubs. We have an after-school social academic club. That is, this is led by our STEM tutor as well. So they'll have the access. They have access to tools and resources needed to thrive academically. It supports social, emotional, cognitive, and academic development, and then also reduce risky behaviors in a safe and supportive environment that is conducive to youth social, emotional well-being. We also have dance club, and our dance club promotes positive leadership, encourages skill and personal growth, encourages to expand their knowledge in art, and pursue technical movement skill goals, and then also it promotes health and physical fitness. And then we have a Better Me Art Club, which is an extension of our Better Me counseling group. So it's a way for them to increase self-esteem and self-awareness. It promotes emotional resilience, improves insight, reduces anxiety. etc. And then we also have a better, I'm sorry, that is part of the Better Me Art Club. I forgot to delete that slide. We also have Fish Club, and Fish Club is in collaboration with Game of Life, which is a sports mentoring program for young men of color, Yeti, which is an outdoor recreational club. And so we have Fish Club, and it's the audience is BIPOC youth. We do that once a month, and we take them to local fishing holes just to teach them about the skills of fishing, and of course, a lot of other lessons are learned throughout that process. During the summer, we have a summer STEAM program. It's a 6-week program. Our participants that complete this program earn a $1,000 stipend. So we cover aviation, painting, coding, culinary arts, dance, and photography. And so they gain knowledge and skill around STEAM. And then at the end of the program, they present via STEAM symposium to family, their mentors, and friends. Once a week, we send out a weekly newsletter to our participants and their parents and or guardians, just updates about our program, resources that we may gain from other organizations, job readiness tools, any type of resources. We put this in a newsletter and send out weekly. And then as far as our outreach to the community, since the pandemic, we've been offering hot meals to our community. And so we're still doing that on a weekly basis. We have masks, COVID-19, rapid tests, books, et cetera. And we do that and distribute that to the community from 3 to 4 once a week. And then lastly, we have a painting fundraiser that's coming up if you guys want to support or just have fun with painting a wonderful picture in celebration of Black History Month. That's next Saturday in collaboration with Painting with a Twist. And that is all that I have for you guys today.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Carlecia, for that presentation. And thank you, Lacie and Alonda, for sharing about your work. Obviously, we're all invested in youth education and youth development and supporting young people. How did you come into this field? Alonda, I know you wrote the book inspired by your own experiences as a young Black child. How did you get into the field of youth development?
Well, I think, first and foremost, my heart has always been with young people from a very, very early age. The organization that I'm a part of right now, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, growing up, I wasn't necessarily a little, but I have always benefited by someone taking an interest in me. I grew up a child facing a lot of adversity. There were all sorts of reasons why I shouldn't be here today. And I feel a strong sense of gratitude toward this work. I feel like I am here on this, like my purpose is to use the talents that I've gained, honestly, in the corporate space. I've gained a ton of really great skills, but it's now, my purpose to use those skills to impact the world, and in particular, young people. I'm really focused on young people. I was a big, so as I grew up and got my first job, I thought about the impact that one person had on my life, and I wanted to return the favor. And so I was a big for a good part of my life. In my career, I did the corporate work for a while, and I just felt this longing, like this is just not fulfilling. I felt that, there were ways to impact a balance sheet, but I wanted to impact lives. And so I made the switch to come into nonprofit back in 2014, and moved into nonprofit and have been in nonprofit really ever since. Last 5 years, as I said, with the Y, and more recently with Big Brothers, Big Sister. The thing that keeps me inspired, however, is the work is so incredible. And like many of you who are in this space, you see day to day the impact that just that one moment, that one person can have on the lives. And at Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Puget Sound and nationally, we rely on data. We collect a lot of data. So in preparation for this, and I'm bummed that I can't share my screen necessarily, but when you look at the stats in the state of Black girls in Washington State, it is enough to make your heart skip a beat. And I am encouraged because that data, is is sad, you know, when you think about the state of violence and mental health, and that, you know, girls of color have more negative impacts than white girls, and in almost every indicator. It makes me want to do more, want to help every single girl out there. But I'm encouraged by looking at our data and looking at our results. And what I have seen, and as I said, I isolated results specifically for girls of color and Black girls in particular, and have seen improvements that are actually much greater than they are for average kids in our program. So Black girls who have a mentor, they have increased performance on academics with academics outcomes, increased performance around social emotional learning and their social competence and feeling at ease in crowds and with people. And then also, most importantly, and this is really important given what the Surgeon General recently said about young people in the crisis of mental health, is, you know, we are seeing significant improvements in depressive symptoms. And we monitor and talk to folks, our young people, before they get involved in our program and then at the end of it. And so this is sort of over time, we're seeing significant improvements in depressive symptoms, particularly among Black girls. So those are the things that get me so excited, because I know all of us together, arm in arm, you know, and none of us individually can solve the problems of all the young girls in our state or young people in our state, but together, when we share the results, we share what we're doing, we share what's working, we can actually collectively make a huge positive impact. So that's what keeps me excited. That's why I'm in this work. And that's what, you know, why I want to continue to partner to do amazing things.
I love that. Thank you. That was great. Lacie, Carlecia, pardon, my dog is losing his mind.
I can go next. And Alonda, like, I like co-sign on everything that you're saying, because I totally agree. I'm sure Carlecia would as well. My journey.
And one more thing I have to say to you is, ooh, are you a Carlecia? Aren't you a Delta?
I am a Zeta.
Oh,
but
sorry,
you know,
sorry.
it's all divine love. So I get you. I have so many friends that are Delta. Yes, so it's all love here.
There are some Deltas on. There's a Delta on this call. I know very well.
Yes. Hey, Soror.
My journey really was, I grew up with that mentality. It takes a village. So I just grew up with tons of family members, friends, people that live by me. That really helped me in my development. And I just took that with me through life. Like, any way I can give back, I will. But I think what really sparked me to say, I want to get into this work specifically, was my transition. I grew up in South Seattle, and I ended up going to high school on Mercer Island. I did not live there. It was just an opportunity that my parents took advantage of. And it was the biggest culture shock in my life. It made me feel like the way I grew up was not correct. And then it just made me feel like the experiences I had were detrimental, because the things that they said, oh, did you have bars on your house windows? How was it just living in Seattle? Did you hear gunshots? And I'm like, yes, some of those things were present, but that wasn't what I grew up with. I grew up with love. I grew up with community. So those things were never really relevant to me. So all those things that I heard every day start to become a part of me, saying, is this who my identity is when I go out into the world? And because of that strong community that I had, I said, you know what? This is not how we should be defined as Black women, as women of color, as anyone of color who come from urban areas. So I just knew how important it was for mentorship and have that solid community. And it's so funny, because I remember, and I tell a lot of people this story because it was so impactful to me. I was sitting in my counselor's office, and she was talking about where you want to go to college. My 3 top schools were Spelman, Berkeley, and UW. And that was because, you know, I just grew up with, you know, Black colleges, people went to Black colleges. Spelman's one of the top colleges you go to. I put Berkeley because I wanted to go to business school, because I knew if I wanted to go into this nonprofit space, I needed business background. And then UW had a great business program. And my counselor told me, why don't you put some community colleges on your list? Because I feel like you would thrive at these, thrive in these environments, because the college campuses might not made to be too big for you. And I didn't understand why she said that to me at the time, because I played 3 sports. I was involved in clubs. I mean, I had a good GPA, but I realized it again, it's that conditioned thing that I think, you know, we talk a lot about white supremacy, that happens at that level. So I went home and told my mom I need to change my college list, because at that time when you're young, you listen to the authority of adults and you think they're telling you the right things. And luckily I have a strong mom, and she went up there and said, listen, my daughter can go anywhere she wants. I appreciate you not telling her that she needs to change her list. And so I applied to all my schools. I got into all my schools, which was amazing, but I ended up going to UW because I wanted to stay back and be with my family. I think that was really important in my community, just realizing what I experienced. So that's a big reason why I wanted to continue going into youth development, especially around mentors or mentorship. So every org that I've worked in, really prioritizing the role of a mentor and mentorship and what it means to our community. And also how, yes, we provide this one-on-one mentorship at Friends Seattle, which is so necessary, but it's also the people around the mentors, our community, that really develops a child or a youth into this person that they should become. So I'm just happy to be in the space. I'm happy to be in the space with all of you doing all the great work. And so this just like makes my heart like overfill seeing everybody.
Love that. Thank you.
Carlecia?
Carlecia?
So yes, I mean, everything that you guys have said definitely resonates with me. I am from Louisiana, so I have a little bit of a different perspective coming to the Pacific Northwest. But I am a graduate of an HBCU. So my work with mentoring started there. It initially started with, you know, HBCUs, you have to get a certain amount of community service hours. And so I was approached by a mentoring program, and I became a mentor. And so, you know, by sophomore year, I was complete with those hours, but the work was so close to my heart and I loved it. I continued. In fact, I'm still in connection with that mentoring program in New Orleans. You know, the educational system is not the best. And so, you know, just that's kind of where I started. And then moving to the Pacific Northwest, my husband has been doing this work for many years with young men of color. I noticed that there was a lack of programs for young women of color, specifically in the area that I'm in. And so have a group of really awesome girlfriends. We have different walks of life, different backgrounds. And so we came together and we established Phenomenal C, because representation absolutely matters. And so that's kind of where it started for me. I do have a corporate America background, was in banking for 14 years and, you know, recently switched to this line of work. But again, it's been a part of my DNA for many, many years. And so it is absolutely fulfilling to be in this line of work, helping youth. You know, Lacie mentioned her mom being able to advocate for her in the school systems. We know that that's not true for everyone. And so being able to not only help the youth, but help their parents to help to advocate for them in spaces where, you know, their voices aren't heard.
That's what's up. I appreciate you all joining me on this call. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about. This is fantastic. You mentioned something, Carlecia, that I want to touch on. I was lucky enough to be able to mentor a Black girl when I was teaching high school about almost 10 years ago. And to your point, there's not very many organizations or even programs dedicated to serving Black girls, right? We have mentoring, you know, even in the elements of effective practice. You have all these guides like, here's how you work with youth in the LGBTQ community, supporting Black boys, supporting low-income or rural youth. All those are important. Why do you think Black girls specifically are overlooked in the field of mentoring? And this is for anyone.
So for me, I feel it because, like, if you look at the history on who has the time to do the work, as far as, you know, volunteering their time, it's not usually women of color. And so I think that cultural relevance makes a difference when it comes to being able to mentor Black young girls. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's overlooked, because, you know, not a lot of people can identify and culturally relate to young women. And then society in general just overlooks us, just in general. And so I think that's a big part of it as well.
I would also add, I agree, and I would add that I think it's two things. Number one, I think if you look at some of the statistics of the state of boys or Black boys, some of what people see and experience might be more in front of their face. And so there's more of essentially more of a cry for Black boys than there are for Black girls. And then the other part of it is there are a lot of very successful Black women. And there are a lot of even when you look at the growth of Black business owners, many of them are Black women entrepreneurs. There's such it's sort of this strong recognition of accomplishments of Black women. And so people, I think, assume that just transfers to Black girls too. And that, you know, oh, Black girls are okay, or Black women are okay because they're achieving things and graduating at rates higher than their counterparts and getting master's degrees at rates higher than their counterparts. So when you see that juxtaposed with needs, I think many people might assume that Black girls are okay, and that's just not the case when you look at the data. And so I think it's a combination of there are other groups that might have more emergent needs, and so they are challenged and held up as being a population that has more needs. And then the other is this juxtaposition with the successful Black women who are doing their thing and doing great. And I would say in my world, Carlecia, just slightly different than you, but in Big Brothers Big Sisters, we serve King County, Pierce County, and Kitsap County. And what we find is that, you know, we have lots of women mentors, and we serve about 300 Black girls in particular. But what we struggle with is finding male mentors, finding especially men of color. That is a huge challenge for us, is finding consistent men of color to mentor. So the women of color are more populous than what we find with men of color. But I think this challenge, James, to your question of why is it, I think it's the juxtaposition of those two things. So that's just my 2 cents.
I mean, I have nothing else to add to that. That was like perfect. And I would only add too is thinking about the intersectionality of just being a woman in general. Like women who aren't women of color already deal with their own set of issues. So pile that on top of being a woman of color and a Black woman. So it's like all those things that we experience at one time, and especially now with the age of social media and the stigmatism behind, you know, it's mental health, right? I mean, I grew up in a household where, like I said, I have a strong mom. She was a believer. You don't go to therapists. You work it out, and you have to work it out because we have to be kind of the leader in our family sometimes, because, you know, my dad, who is Black as well, was like, he experienced his own issues as a Black man. So sometimes you are the therapist in your home and also sometimes the breadwinner, and that weighs on us, but we have been taught to just keep going. And eventually you can break down from that. And I think younger girls nowadays experience that 10 times more than probably I did growing up. And like Carlecia was saying, you know, it's a loss. We're not a focus.
100%. You know, I think I'm thinking about like pop culture and youth culture, and you know, I'm appreciative of Serena Williams putting a highlight on, you know, Black women dying during childbirth. And Naomi Osaka talking about mental health and, you know, withdrawing from tennis matches. What are you seeing as some of the biggest issues we're facing, right? You know, I just read a report that said Black children are 10 times as likely to be suspended from schools in Washington State than their white peers. 10 times as likely. what are some other issues we're facing in the youth development world?
Yeah, I was looking at the same stats. There's an organization called Girls, let's see, I think it's called Justice for Girls, and they issued a policy brief about some of the things that we are seeing in Washington State. And everything that you mentioned, like girls have fewer, Black girls in particular have fewer adults to support on, higher levels of depressive symptoms. There's also, you know, the unfortunate and really heartbreaking stats. There's a story, Cairo actually did it, and it's called A Different Cry. It's heartbreaking, but it talks about how Black children, more recently, as young as 9, 10, are more likely to commit suicide than white children are. And it is just heartbreaking. And part of the reason, this is the part that I learned, it was just, again, I'll pop it in the chat as well, was that it is due to racism. It is due to bullying. It is due to feelings of inadequacy. It is due to sort of that intersectionality that Lacie was talking about, felt at such a young age, and not really understanding how to deal with that pressure. So I think in the state, we have definitely, we see more detrimental outcomes for young girls, girls and Black girls in particular, but nationwide, this alarming concern about mental health and the resulting suicides that are happening with Black children. It is at crisis levels for all children, but for Black kids in particular, it is red flag, raise the alarm. Absolutely. I'll pop it in the chat. Cairo did actually, I think it was King. They did a nice job on it. So I'll pop it here in just a second.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd say definitely goes back to it's, systemic racism, right? It's historical. It's stuff that it's going to take a lot of whatever to undo, and it's not going to happen anytime soon. So recognizing, I think, those issues is important. We talked a lot about accessibility, right? Understanding the needs of our youth and their families. We cannot forget the youth is directly affected by their families. When you grow up in multi-generational households, whatever's happening to your mom or your father or your aunt, your grandma is put on you. So we sometimes forget that sometimes youth are caregivers and they have to make decisions on what's important to them and their families at that time. And so sometimes they might not attend a program session because they have to watch their little brother or sister and they have no choice in that. And that can cause a whole nother set of trauma. So I think we have to really put a focus on mental health and understand why these issues are happening instead of the discipline or why this person or chastising someone for lack of anything. So I think that needs to really be addressed. And I think I saw that that thing on Cairo as well, which I thought was really good. So thank you, Alonda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in the chat. Popped it in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a common theme for sure, like mental health, and it's stemming from a lot of other things. And I would say Lacie touched on this earlier, but social media is, that has a huge impact. Like growing up, I didn't have social media. I mean, it wasn't a thing. And so now, like everything they're dealing with, so the generational trauma and all of the other things at the social media, and, the world of perfection and having to live up to that, as something else to add to their plate. But I think about, schools specifically, the systemic racism within that, and just not having a lot of people within the schools that can identify with what, our Black girls are going through. I think of an example, a school counselor told me that a student was like not participating in class and got put out of class as a result. And, she talked to her, a Black woman talked to her and realized that her sibling had just got taken away by CPS that morning. And so, just not having those people to identify with what's going on, understanding what's behind the behavior. And so I think that's another thing that's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about, you're talking about like ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, add on to the epigenetics of ancestral pain we're dealing with. And there's a big misunderstanding in like the antecedents were all fed, right? The things that are so baked into our brain and chemistry that we don't even know we're doing them, right? And if we're looking at CBT and DBT, it takes minimum 6 weeks to change behavior, right? So if you're getting triggered every day, trying to assimilate, so to speak, to a culture that is not your own, your behavior will maintain the same trajectory and you'll have those same repercussions, even though it will be misplaced, right? Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'd be remiss, right? There's 3 leaders on this call, right? Like we talk about the issues as leaders, how can we address some of the issues that you're talking about? Whether we run nonprofits, whether we run programs or for-profits, right? We came from the for-profit world before entering the nonprofit world. I have a lot of ideas, but you are smarter than I am. So what should we be thinking of as leaders?
I could always talk. So I'll wait for someone else to go if someone else wants to say something first.
I could go first this time. I call it like empathetic action because it goes beyond empathy. It's what the actions happen after that you understand empathy. There are so many folks that get sympathy mixed up with empathy. So for example, and I'm just speaking from a leadership perspective and not necessarily talking about our youth, but because I think it all stems down, right? The leaders to staff, to the youth, to the services we provide. But it's when things happen like, oh, I want to promote a leader of color or a Black woman or a Black man in this leadership role because it's the right thing to do. For me, that's sympathy. Instead of saying, think about it empathetically and saying, what's the action I can take to ensure I understand how this person feels and where this person needs to be. So I'm promoting this person in this role because I know they're qualified to do it. And if they're not, what actions can I take to successfully coach them to be successful in their role? How can I create an environment that makes others thrive? Really thinking about that equity piece. So for me, it's empathy, and even empathy with the youth, understanding why something is happening the way it is, instead of it is just what it is, and not feeling sorry for them and trying to do things for them, but really understanding why things are happening. So that's why I just think of the word or the phrase like empathetic action, because it goes beyond just understanding, but what's the action behind it?
And I guess the only thing I would add is absolutely empathetic action, but, and I would also say that don't listen to something and take no action. I think every single person has on this call, you can do one thing, like do one thing to advance Black women and girls. Just do one thing. And that one thing might be that you make sure that you understand the stats. You make sure that as you look at your data or you look at your programs, that you are effectively addressing Black girls. I think it's people that are interested and involved in conversations like these. We are the ones that can take action, but it's hard, day to day, something else is more important. There's another issue. Just make a commitment to take a small step and do something that advances Black women and girls. It might be learning about the stats. I just popped something in the chat, 2 things. So you can see one about suicide rates. 2, you can also see a little bit about young girls, Black girls in particular, involved in juvenile justice system. You can see there, we all in this call, mentors, find more mentors, make sure that that you have mentors of color to support Black girls. Make sure that your mentors of color or your mentors that are not of color understand some of the issues that they may be going through. So the training, making sure that the training is solid. So I would just say, don't just listen and not take action. That would be my challenge to leaders, is to act, like be courageous, to lean in and to just do one thing. You can't do everything, and we all know that, but do one thing.
I love that. Love that.
And I don't have much to add. They've said it all, but just leaders that care. They touched on that, the emotion, being, empathetic. So yeah, I agree completely with everything that's been said.
Awesome. Before we turn it over to the attendees, I have one more question. It is Black History Month, and oftentimes, we're saying, oh, we could watch Roots or Glory or 12 Years a Slave, right? What are you doing to celebrate Black joy during Black History Month? And of course, Black History Month is every month, but what are you doing to celebrate joy of Blackness?
So like you mentioned, Black History is every month for us, but in our programming, we're highlighting women in Black history, women that aren't often talked about. So, not your typical Black women that they already know. So just so they can get more history, because I think that's important. But we did a fun activity last night. We partnered with KCLS Makerspace, and we created mugs with Black women in quotes, powerful quotes. So that's something that we've done this month to celebrate Black history.
Love that. Oh, you're on mute, Lacie.
I was just agreeing. I was like, I love it. But I can go next. We are putting little tidbits on social media. We are talking to staff on ideas on ways we can celebrate Black history with our youth, understanding that we are in this virtual world, because I know we could do way more in person. We have some outings to celebrate Black History Month. And I would just say personally, as myself, I'm learning to celebrate myself more. And Black History Month has really highlighted that for me, to continue to love myself and how I can be helpful for others as well. But I got to help myself first before I can help others.
That's great. I love that. And I would say, I'm still relatively new in my role. So, and building the team, we still have some holes across the organization. So our focus right now is really just on lifting up other organizations and partnering. I fully believe in partnership. And so the Y of Greater Seattle has some really amazing programming. So I've been directing my staff to share other resources from match activities that our bigs can do with their littles throughout the month that are sponsored by other organizations. So there's just, we try to create a resource list to share of activities that are happening across the state, whether they are virtual or in person. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is to uplift and share information from other organizations that are doing way more than we have the capacity to do.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Let's give them a round of applause before we turn it over to the participants. Woo! So Robin has a question in the chat. I know she's in Kitsap County. What are some good on-demand trainings available to help educate mentors to better work with Black girls? Carlecia, you run Phenomenal She. Do you have any offhand?
I don't have any offhand. I'm gonna message my program manager is on the call. I'm gonna message her to see if she has anything to share.
Perfect. I got to also call out Serena runs Girls Inc. Northwest, based in Portland. Serena, do you happen to have any on-demand trainings available for young girls, Black girls?
For mentors for trainings?
Yes.
We don't actually, but it's a fantastic question. It's nice to meet everyone. Thank you.
I love Girls Inc.
I'm glad. I'm actually going to be in touch with you and a few other people, but I came in, I wouldn't say that I'm a party crasher, but this is very new to me. I've known James for a very long time. We go back to 1999, actually, back to our college days at Spelman and Morehouse. But Girls Inc. is Girls Inc. of the Pacific Northwest. And we've been in the Portland, Southwest Washington area for a long time, but we only came up to Tacoma and Seattle right before the pandemic. So I act as the CEO and I work with our director of programs. So we're just really reintroducing ourselves and building relationships, which is why I'm very grateful to be here today and enjoyed everything that's been shared. it resonates with a lot of the work that we do. Even though we don't have trainings that we can share, we do a lot of the work that's very similar, and I'm glad to be here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mentor Central. What is Mentor Central, Carlecia? That's a new resource.
So I see it. Are you able to share what Mentor Central is? She's feeding me this information.
Okay.
So Mentor Central is a database that we use. We got the resource from Innovative Mentoring, and Mentor Central has different programs that you can outsource to your mentors. One that I particularly like is Building the Relationship. So it's a 90-minute course, and they go over different scenarios, and then at the end they give our mentors certificates. So they receive a certificate just saying that they completed the course, and they understand the information. So
Awesome.
it's mentorcentral.com. Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you. And is it a free 99? Gotta ask, right, Robin?
Of that.
No, it's actually it does cost.
Yeah.
So it's not free.
Perfect. Thank you. And thanks, Serena, for sharing more about Girls Inc. Any questions for our panelists? Appreciate that.
I was gonna say, James, that might be a good working group to start, maybe, to get mentors, Black and Brown mentors together and talk about strategies, best practices.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
And make it free.
Make it free 99. My favorite. My favorite.
Yeah, I was going to say within the Big Brothers Big Sisters network, we have a ton of training, but I have not come across training specifically for Black girls. We have our, some Jedi training on diversity, justice, equity, and inclusion in general. But I think you're right, Lacie. Like, it's an opportunity for us to sort of fill a gap where we don't see something. We have an opportunity to create some resources. So I would love to see that as well.
This is fruitful. I will be reaching out to all three of you and more on this call about seeing how we can put that together. Yes, I'm a big fan of that. Robin has another question. Are there any programs, is that available to any programs outside of Big Brothers Big Sisters?
I'm not sure yet if it's something that we can distribute widely. Most of it is available on our sort of internal portal that our mentors go through, and that's how they generally access it. But I'm a fan of partnering and sharing. And so if there is something that I can share, I'm happy to share it. So I'll do some checking to find out.
Definitely. Perfect. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Hey, Susanna.
Of course, thank you. This is amazing. Thank you very much. I wonder if there's also room for collaboration for our youth. We're on Lopez Island and our mentors are white. They're retirees who have the time and the resources to mentor. And for our BIPOC youth, I would love to have any collaboration where they could meet a peer group either virtually or a couple times a year in person, whether you come up here or we come down there. Because we can continue with mentoring one-to-one, but I think having another group would also benefit our youth.
I agree. I'd love to participate in that and support that for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's also a wonderful idea, Susanna, to have that, cross-regional, intersectional, peer-to-peer mentoring to build supports across the region. I love that. Tony just put into the chat his platform, which is Futurepreneurs, unlimited training to mentors building entrepreneurial thinking skills. I love that. Vishay has a question. Currently working on a project where I'm talking to Black women, girls about their journey to self-love, beauty, and we'd love to set something up if available, can I please have emails of folks on the panel and a call? Great. Yes. Please put your email to the chat and we can make that happen. We're running short on time. So I have one final question if there's no more in the house. And that final question is, what should we be thinking about on this third Thursday in February as we navigate the rest of this year? Not just leaders, but what should we walk away from this conversation thinking about? I know personally, I'm celebrating all this. 1, joy. 2, Black joy. 3, Black femme joy and expertise. So I'm walking away with that. That's going to drive me for the rest of my February and the rest of my year.
I love that. I also love what Lacie said earlier about taking care of herself, self-care, and just reinforcing and just a huge supporter and just making sure that we provide the space for self-care. And it can be overlooked when we're so busy, especially, you know, the nonprofit slog can be hard. You don't have enough to do anything, but making sure that we prioritize self-care for our staff and ourselves.
Audre Lorde said it best. Self-care is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. That's an act of political warfare. Yep.
Love that.
Got to self-care, 100%. Well, it is. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm leaving with, you know, the thought of collaboration. Alonda mentioned that they are not lacking women of color mentors. So I think collaborating to understand, you know, how can we get together and share resources so that we can impact our young women positively.
I didn't mean we're not lacking. We could always use them. I meant that the biggest gap is, you know, proportionally, the biggest gap is with men of color. And that is just abysmally low. Whereas we have a little bit more women of color and certainly a lot more women who are not of color. So just wanted to clarify that.
Great. And Terry's and Suzanne's boat will love to and appreciate any collaboration.
Yes.
Love
it.
Yeah. I would leave by saying we're all in this together. We only succeed when the person next to us does. So if we always remember that, we're always going to remember about collaboration.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking this trip with us on Java with James. Really, really, really fantastic conversation. Definitely want to continue this moving forward. I love this idea about coming together to start building curriculum and strategies, supporting young Black girls. And Susanna, I would love a day at Camp at Camp Orkyla. I've only heard positive things. I've never actually been there. So now there's a great reason to bring us all there. Lacie, Carlecia, Alonda, thank you so much for this. Participants, thank you for joining us. This was a great conversation. Have a wonderful rest of your day and hope you have a good mid-winter break next week if you have school off. If you don't, well, I'll see you anyway.
Thank you for doing this, James. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.